Let's get to it. Javon, you're back.
I am.
You are. Back for a short time, though, before you move on to your next adventure. So what have you got coming up in a little while?
Yeah, summer camp again, World's Best Counselor award goes to me. Returning, for the sake of the children, as requested.
Yeah.
So many requests for me to come back. Just like, if, fate allows.
Yeah.
Because they were asking me at the end of the summer. Like, I'm exhausted. The last session was exhausting. And you're going to ask me right as, like, don't ask me questions. Like,
right.
I mean, in every session they were asking. I was like, I'm exhausted right now. You're asking me questions that I can't answer. Let me get myself together, digest this experience. And then.
But didn't you end up saying, like, pretty quickly after that, like, that you wanted to do it? Like, you didn't wait long before you gave them an answer.
I mean, it was a couple of days.
Yeah.
Because the session ends, then we have a break, and then we need to start clean up. Like, it was break, and then meetings.
Right.
Like, one-on-one meetings, and you get a performance review at the end.
Right.
And chat. And I was like, you know what? I liked it. So I'll do it again.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. You love it. And it's fun for me to watch you do something that you enjoy, even though that means you're going to yet another city.
I mean, it's not really a city. It's really the woods.
Well, you know what I mean. Yet another place that's not here at home.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've got a lot to get into, right? Because we haven't done this in forever. And thank you for everyone watching Rabbi and Son, Hot Takes on News, Pop Culture, and Religion. I'm Rabbi Patrick. This is Javon. And we're just excited to have you here. You might notice something. We only use one microphone. And the reason why is that the little clip-on mics that we had, they blow up. They make noise that's just way, way, way too loud, like my phone right now. So we need another one of these. And I think they're like $200 for the set, something like that. Not that.
I didn't buy
yeah,
it.
It wasn't that expensive. So if you want to support the podcast, if you want the audio to be better, if you want the video to be better, we're actually having to record this with a different software because the software shut down like right before we started recording this. So if you're a student at Darshan Yeshiva, if you like seeing this content, if you want to see more of it, if you want to see higher quality content, then please give a donation. We'll have that on our Substack, so please support it. And if you do, we'll mention your name on here. Maybe we'll do a topic that interests you and give you a shout out. But $200 and you can have a way better experience than this. So let's get into it. Epstein. Yeah, right, Epstein. The one thing I don't want to talk about. And to be fair to you, you've been willing to record for like several weeks now. And yeah, you've been working, and so we've had scheduling issues, but I've had trouble thinking about how to talk about this. So from my perspective, I mean, I'm going to put aside the political part. I'm going to put because we don't talk about that, but like I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to put the charges aside. Right? I'm going to put aside like the horrible, graphic, disgusting stuff and, PG rated podcasts, so we can't talk about stuff anyway. I'm going to put all of that aside because someone somewhere is talking about that. Everyone everywhere is talking about that. The thing that breaks me is if you're someone like me who works in the Jewish nonprofit world, if you're someone who has donated to Israel causes, if you go to Israel events of different kinds that I've been to, cultural events and, things like that, educational events, to see the names, that are these big names, right? And to see all of the effort of just kind of low, people who are the low end of the org chart, just trying to do their job to support things they believe in Jewish life, in the life of Israel and other places, just absolutely get barbecued because of these people who were worshipped like golden gods. It breaks me. I don't know. I'm leaving this one to you. Thoughts? Give me some Gen Z thoughts.
I mean, my thoughts are just like in general, I think that the issue itself is such a, overarching, global, web of, powerful people.
Right.
Influential people in, governments, in media, et cetera, et cetera. I think I don't want to say this. I think that, everyone is in favor of, let's charge these people.
Right.
Let's
Right.
actually investigate. Let's get some people, under oath. Let's get some, depositions. Let's
Right.
get people talking.
Right.
In the legal sense. Like,
Right.
to be like, okay, did you do this or did you not do this?
Mm-hmm.
And for, like, people to be like, I'm not going to say people in general, but, like, said powerful people being like, well, this will, destroy the country if these people are held accountable. I feel like that's a, good idea, though. Like,
what, to hold them accountable, you mean?
Yeah, if you're not holding them accountable, and it's like, okay, you're protecting them for what? How is this person not being in this place,
right,
doing this job,
right,
going to destroy the country? And you're acknowledging
right,
that it's so overreaching,
right,
that these are like people entangled in the politics of it all,
right,
what the national politics, geopolitics,
right.
And I mean, like, it's kind of insane to me that will be given a reason when children were harmed.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that would be the more unifying thing, that
right,
children were ultimately harmed,
right,
and anyone can be replaced. These people aren't like so unmovable.
Sure.
That, like, removing them will cause collapse. I think the thing that people are worried about is the political system,
right,
collapsing, which, not to say that's a bad thing, but it would be, fantastic for us to have, more options,
right,
in this country, as, opposed to two options, which, seems, equally as culpable in terms of, names on said list and said donors to said parties. So obviously no one wants to do anything about it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, shame, honestly.
Yeah.
And for, people who are doing these bad things, and, giving money, more to your point.
Right.
Giving money to these organizations, and, the people you are talking about happen to specifically be Jewish.
Right.
I don't think people want to talk about that,
right,
to then feed into more anti-Semitic, tropes,
right, right. Yeah, that's a tough one, because that's why I got banned from one of the Jewish Reddit accounts, right? Because I posted a thing, and hey, listen, if you're on Reddit, if you're one of the Reddit mods, maybe you can say something about this. So I was like really distraught and wanted to talk to someone about just my feelings around this, whatever, but I didn't want to talk to people I knew, right? I wanted to kind of have a little more anonymity. I wasn't going to say who I was or what I did for a living, and I got flagged. Now, I will take credit where credit is due. It was the first post I created. I created a Reddit account so that I could post this. So instantly it's shady, right? Like instantly it's like, it's your first post. We don't know you. And immediately you're wanting to talk about like nonprofits. And so like, I will own that. I will own that to a person who spends probably too much time on Reddit. I look like, whatever, a Russian bot or something. I don't know. But like the fact that it was immediately like, almost like, how dare you? Like, how dare you talk about it? It's like, what do you mean, how dare me? I'm literally telling you, I'm not giving you my name, I'm not telling you where I work, but I'm saying like, here's where I'm coming from, and here's where I'm upset, and is there any space for me as someone who, just wants to talk? Is there any solidarity out there? And the answer in that moment, and yes, it was because like I didn't do it right or whatever, but the answer was like, no. Like, no freedom for you to say that you're frustrated, that there are causes you believe in who have taken money from really, it turns out, really horrible people. And like, have you ever heard of something called the halo effect? I just learned about this.
No.
Okay, so I might get this a little bit wrong, but basically the idea of the halo effect is that so it goes to this whole idea of like, why are people able to be such scoundrels and get people around them to think that they're good? Like, how does that happen? So there's this idea called the halo effect, which basically says that if a person let's say, gives to charity a lot, or they are someone who, is involved deeply in important causes or something like that, that they will, it will almost excuse away anything bad they've done. They create like a halo around themselves, and people are attracted to the halo. They're not necessarily attracted to who that person really is, what their actual values might be, things like that. It creates this permission structure for liking them and wanting to work with them and all of this other stuff. And I just think for some of these people, there's just this halo effect that's been created around them. And I think back to like the early days of my work in the nonprofit world, and I get it, like I get who I am. I would go, and I was young, I would go into these spaces where there were lots of really wealthy people, and I was uncomfortable. I didn't know how to navigate that. It was weird. You're like doing Jewish stuff, but your name is Patrick. There was like prejudices that some people had. And so I didn't react well to it. And I was just very dismissive during that time. And now I look back and I'm like, what room might I have been in with someone who turns out as a scumbag?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like, was it all just me being a little punk and like not knowing how to handle myself in those types of environments? Or were my spidey senses kind of going off a little bit about like, I don't know about you. I don't know where does all this money come from?
I mean, but that's like the goal. The goal is to, I'm doing these bad things. And like, as a true crimer,
Yeah, I was about to say, this is your area.
It is very much like, especially like when I watched a story recently where it was like, well, I mean, I wouldn't say recently, but like,
sure,
recently in the last, few years where, this kid was accused of, doing, harming other classmates.
Sure.
And then since he came from a good family, quote unquote,
right,
they
right.
never looked into it. Or
right.
this story where this like doctor had by nefarious means used his ability to practice medicine to assault multiple women. It was like, oh no, that's the good doctor. Like,
right,
we know him.
right.
He's at Sundays where
right.
he's like a deacon at
right.
the church. Like, he's very seen. This is what these people do. They like create this like golden image.
Right.
So when it is come to question their characters, like, no, they couldn't possibly have done that. Like,
right.
I know them from doing this, and this.
Right.
Or giving to this, and that.
Right.
When it's like, I think people need to realize that anyone in this world is capable of anything.
Sure.
Like, so to dismiss it as they can possibly is, leaving a stone unturned because
right.
you just so happen to like this person so much. And then it could, eventually come to bite you.
Right.
You're defending someone rather than just being like, I have never been privy to these characteristics.
Right.
But I'll, watch it play out.
Right.
And, that's how you find out. And if people are shielding and not wanting to have these conversations, and then it eventually blows back up on them, like, no amount of a public apology is going to be good enough.
Right.
Like, you got to dissolve. You got to, you're probably apologizing when everyone was saying, hey, let's not jump the gun.
Right.
Let's be like, yeah, okay, that name was on that list. That's crazy.
Right.
We don't know the situation. We will not be getting involved. We have no side. We're going to let the legal processes work out as they may.
Right.
And I don't think some people want to deal with, the reality of should it come to light.
Right.
They're not ready to deal with the aftermath of it.
Right.
So there's going to be like,
right.
sweeping under the rug until it becomes a problem. And it's going to be someone else's problem by the time it's a problem.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point too, is that sometimes there is this kind of, you don't want to just say it's like looking the other way, because I think in some cases people just don't know. Like they just don't care, they don't dig that deep. I sort of feel like post Bernie Madoff, everyone who's in philanthropy kind of needs to be really careful about who are the donors who are able to give the $50,000 checks, the $150,000 checks, like it's nothing. Because that's a lot of money, and it comes from somewhere, and it may come from very legitimate success, and God willing, people are successful and would want to give away their money. We can't all just win the lotto, but, the fact that such intelligent people don't do their homework. And then when they don't do their homework, they excuse it. They say like, oh, this won't be my problem for much longer. Or so what if this person has done such and such? Like, maybe they're trying to do better now, or maybe we just, that doesn't impact me. And it's like, no, like if you let yourself get sullied by other people's, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. I think you are the company you keep, and maybe that's not true all the time. Like sometimes when you're young, you have friends that's like, maybe I need to move on from these people. Or, maybe you had a group of people that you hang out with and it's like, having thought about it, maybe that's not wise for me to be around these people. It's a growth process. It happens when you're an adult too. But just generally speaking, like that you're not accounting for who these people are in your life, that you're not even just taking a moment to ask yourself, like, but how did this person suddenly have an island? But how does this person seem to have all of these influential friends?
I don't think anyone questions it because that's like, they have all the influential people.
Right.
And it's like, to the point where it's like they're so ingrained. Everyone's asking that question. How do they know this person? Well, it doesn't really matter because there's this person over there who I can now go talk to.
Right.
And I can now go, mingle with.
Right.
Like it's the distraction of it all. Right. And the person that, the epicenter, is creating or having all these other people around him that creates this shield.
Right.
And it prevents anyone from actually being like, well, who is this person?
Right.
And it's not like, he was a person that's like actually like influential in the like the actually influencing sense. We are like, headlines upon headlines of this is who this person is. Because then when someone knows them and like, what do they do exactly?
Yeah.
Like the Kardashians. That was the question. They're famous for just being on TV.
They're famous for being famous.
Exactly. And then some people just, realize, like, sit back and be like, once they are like this big person, this big personality, like this household name recognition, there are going to be those people who are like, well, everyone knows this person, but what does this person actually do? Like, do they come from money? Like, where does the money start? Where does this person's life start? Right. And there will be people who comb through your whole life. Random people on the internet comb through your life to see if, who are you? Right. But since he was not that person, like you may have seen him photographed, but it was never like, billboard. Like, all hot news.
Yeah, there is kind of a big fish, small pond kind of effect to that, right? Like, who would know who Epstein is, or who would know the names of some of these donors? Unless you kind of are in that world. And even I don't. Like, I mean, there's names that I know, but I haven't met any of these people. I think I've met, like, one, like the grandson of like one person at a thing, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not exactly going into the Epstein files and digging through like everybody's like name, right? Because again, like I only know of these from the line of work I'm in, not from, whatever. I know the names of like foundations, right? I don't know those people. And we're 97% funded by you. We only get 3% of our funding from donors. So that's the crazy thing about us, right? So if you are a student at Darshan Yeshiva, you are paying for this little clown show that we got going on here. If you are a donor, you are only part of 3%. So thank you for that 3%. And if you'd like to support us more, I would greatly appreciate it, because we do not take big money from anybody. You can tell by the production value of this podcast.
Yes. And, you are invited into my home, so I will be wearing house clothes.
Yep.
So, I mean,
me too.
If you want me to look better, I mean, always donate. And then I'll,
is there a Jewish
if the production value goes up, the presentation value goes up.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. So the kind of next part of this that I wanted to come to, and this relates to the fact that what's implicated in all of this Epstein stuff, and it's been going on since October 7th, is Zionism, right? And so the idea that that there are people who are unscrupulous, who've been involved in this world, who happen to also be supporters of the state of Israel. And my take on this is there's a lot of people who are average human beings who are not part of this world who also would use the term Zionist. But you watch the news, like we watch a lot of the same influencers and, independent news and whatever, and it's always the Zionist this, the Zionist that. And I gotta say, it cuts at me because for me, the word Zionist is similar to the word patriotic. Like, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, right? Like, I have friends who will say, I am a Zionist, who are literally doing peace work in Israel, who are trying to, like, bring Jews and Arabs together and trying to, like, build a safer and more inclusive, Israel. And then there are people who call themselves Zionists who want to go and, do horrible things, right? Words we can't say because then, like, Apple and Spotify and what have you. So maybe there just has to be a different word at this point. I don't know.
I think this is a word that gets, misused to the point where it's like, what is the actual definition and what does it actually mean?
Right.
We've seen this with like so many words like DEI, woke,
right,
like, or even
inclusive.
Like,
that's
inclusive,
a word.
or like fascist. Like, people are just using
Nazi,
terms,
yeah.
that have definitions,
right?
And rather than like apply the definitions to said words,
right,
they're just gonna say it, to get this, reaction out of people. Now, as far as like, Zionism, I think that from what I've seen, at least, on the internet perspective,
sure,
that it's people that believe that, I'm not gonna say people that believe that, but like they believe the word to mean like, and this is like my opinion. So don't like,
whatever. We're not going to come after
you.
Go
nuts in the comments because I will respond.
Or I was about to say, do go nuts in the comments if you want to hear more from him.
Yes,
that's the deal. That's that's how it works.
Just like it's a Zionist is someone who supports Israel and who believes in the domination of Israel.
The domination of Israel meaning what?
Meaning like they dominate that region.
Okay.
Like, in the sense that, like, they believe in, the Israeli government. They believe they can do no wrong.
Okay, got it.
And they believe that they have the right to Palestinian land.
Okay.
And should be able to control all of that land.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. So meaning that Israel has the right to be the power player for the entire region. And have as little or as much land as it wants, regardless of whose it might be.
According to, what was it? Trump's ambassador to Israel. No, just yesterday, Trump's ambassador to Israel, Sarah Huckabee Sanders' father, I believe.
Mike,
yeah. Very bad. Like that whole.
Was this the Tucker interview?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that didn't go
bad.
well for him, did it? No.
It was so. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that when someone says a Zionist, they think of that.
Right,
like,
right.
That mentality of Israel can do no wrong. They can go in here, do whatever. They can do this, whatever, no consequences.
Right.
And they have a right, biblically, to do these things.
Right.
So I do think, and people are not, making that better, coming in here, or people feeling like, why are our tax dollars feeding this thing that we don't want it to feed, while we're starving,
right?
And so it's just like, that's how I think it's playing out,
right? Whereas I think the true definition, or the most distilled definition, is that it is an indigenous sovereignty question, right? Like, do the Jewish people have the right to self-determination in an ancestral homeland? Which I will be the first to say has changed borders in a lot of different ways and at a lot of different times. So oftentimes shrinking or expanding depending on what century you're talking about. And, those border changes happening under the colonization by others, right? So like what is called Palestine, aka the, mandate, right? That's the Brits, right? That includes Jordan. Right? So like who are the Jordanians? 70% of them are Palestinian. So this idea of like where does the border start and stop, and where does it define and by who? These are modern concepts. And
I
you know,
think
prior to that, you're talking about like kingdoms and monarchies and colonizers ultimately. So the thing about Israel is that it is a modern attempt to do something that has never existed, which is a people's returning to the origin land and establishing sovereignty. It would be like the Cherokee who are in reservations in Oklahoma going back to Georgia and saying like, this is where our ancestors are from. We want to reclaim this for our ancestors. And yet that doesn't happen, right?
I mean,
Israel's the only example in history. It's crazy if you think about it.
I mean, I think that the problems in that region is similar to Africa.
Okay.
How colonizers went in, carved up land, and then left.
Right.
And then continued issues in the future. Like you said, 70% of Jordanians are Palestinian.
Right.
I mean, think of all the tribes in Africa,
Right.
and you just arbitrarily drew borders,
Right.
and now
Right.
there's constant conflict of what land is whose land,
Right.
ancestrally,
Right.
and I think these are the same countries that are trying to fix these problems.
Right. Funny that.
Trying to fix, and I say fix in like quotation marks. I don't think they want to fix anything. Like the more the region can be, a region with rich natural resources can be in a state of disarray,
right.
the more it's beneficial to them to be able to go in there,
right.
do what they need to do for their own countries,
right.
while saying they're going to help.
Right.
Things may get minusculely better, but
right.
never better in total.
Right. Right.
So,
I mean, that's the crazy thing about Israel is that it has no oil. It was malarial swampland in the 1940s, and the Jewish people having that land back and being able to make something of it between that and the desert is, I mean, it goes back to like what I think is remarkable about what happens when a people are allowed to return to their ancestral land and to be able to no longer be under the thumb of colonizers. I have all the sympathy in the world for the Jordanians because the Jordanians, that's like all of them, but the 70% who are Palestinian especially, the Hashemite kingdom is not like they're not Palestinian, right? The king it's the Hashemite family, right? So you're not talking about this was a puppet government that was established, and then I mean on top of that, you have a country like Israel that is very diverse in terms of Jews being religious, not religious. What does that even mean? Like, what are their expectations of the country? You have Israeli Arabs who culturally, they're ethnically Arab, but they're part of this like secularized, westernized, country. But then they have a bond, let's say, with people who live in the West Bank or Gaza, but a Gazan Arab and an Israeli Arab are culturally going to be like opposite ends of the pole, right? And then on top of that, you have the Druze who are Muslim, but think of themselves as a different well, they don't think of themselves, they are a different ethnic group. Then you have the Samaritans, and the Samaritans speak Hebrew and Arabic, are not Jews, but are not Arabs, and can kind of float in the middle because they're their own group who think of themselves as being connected to the like Israelite kingdom. They think of themselves as being, ethnically part of the biblical story, which they are. There's a historical debate about what happened first. Did they break off from the Jews? Did the Jews break off from them? Or, whatever, neither here nor there. But you have all of these different groups. You have Muslims who are Arab who will participate in the army even though legally they don't have to. You also have ones who would protest even their own brothers and sisters being in the army. But then you have another group of Muslims. I never get their name right. I think it's the Circassians who... they are required. So they are Muslims who are required to be in the Israeli army, right? So it's such a diverse culture that even Israel, which is the size of New Jersey, like, how do you even figure out how that works? on top of all that, I think one of the problems that Israel has is there is no uniquely Israeli culture, right? Everybody kind of, you're Israeli, like in terms of your citizenship, but there is no nationality called Israeli because it's Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs, Israeli Arab Christians versus Israeli Arab Muslims, whatever. Like people belong to their tribes in a way. Whereas in America, there is no ethnicity called American, but there is a nationality that's American. And you don't have that there. And you also like don't have that necessarily in the Middle East. The Middle East is way more interested in these like ethno-religious cultural identities like the Yazidis and, the Mandeans and all of these other things. And America is so exceptional that we kind of invented a nationality one day and just decided, well, if you're here, you're this. And so, yeah, these things are just so complicated. But that's the part of Zionism people don't talk about is like, I would like a Zionism for the Palestinians so that they don't have to be under the thumb of a theocracy that wants to use their children as cannon fodder, or being oppressed by some colonizer somewhere, yeah, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I totally got us off subject.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
But
anyway,
yeah,
but Zionist, I guess that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
like, what's the word now? What do you even use?
I mean, who knows? I don't know. I just think that people in leadership positions are doing Israel disservice. Ultimately,
Yeah.
like especially in America now.
Right.
Like, at the beginning of the conflict, it was still touch and go, but then as it's dragged along further, you now have more people on the why are we giving more money to Israel?
Right.
Like, why are they being allowed to do these things?
Right.
With no consequence.
Right.
And then and that's why, people on the left wing, and then you have the, right wing people who are like, already have these conspiracies going on.
Right.
And then when you're making it seem like they are actually untouchable, they can do anything. You're feeding that stereotype that you say is a problem.
Right.
And then like you can't deny when high ranking officials saying we are going to go in this place and we are going to take this and make it this.
Right.
And those people will no longer be there. Or allowing your citizens to go into a territory that's not theirs and to essentially annex it. Like, essentially. I mean, it's the same thing, Russia's doing in Ukraine. And I say that, I'm like using that as comparison, but like,
yeah, I understand.
At this point of going to an area, taking land, and that land being now that.
Right.
So I think you can't deny that these officials have said that. And there's been a stated, goal by high-ranking officials in said party.
Right.
And, I mean, they're the leading government.
Right. Right.
So whatever their mandate is, it seems like that's being done.
Right.
And, you can't really fight anti-Semitism while feeding into anti-Semitism.
But see, this is where it gets complicated, though, because there are people who would make an argument that anti-Semitism will exist no matter what we do. Right? No matter how good you are, no matter how many kind things you do, no matter how much you take care of people or give to things or whatever, at the end of the day, someone's going to hate you. And the great example of that is look at who got killed on October 7th. A lot of those people who lived on those kibbutzim, like all along the border there, were peace activists. Like, it wasn't like militaries were attacked, right? It was just like normal people who would have thought of themselves as like left-wing peace activists. There was like one woman who was killed who one of her things she did was helped Gazans get hospital care in Israel, right? So that's where there's a rhetoric that says like, see, we told you so. We told you that no matter how good you were, no matter how you put aside how Jewish you are or whatever the context, so the constant they are always out to get you.
I mean, but vice versa. Like, you can always, there's always that. Like, you always have that, just because someone says about you, and then you can say the same thing about someone else.
Right.
Either way, there is still that, deep in your mind prejudice.
Right.
That, and then, like, the moment it's like justified, it's now we're gonna punish people who weren't involved.
Right.
Which is saying you're saying the same thing that is why you're responding.
Right.
I mean, if they harm people who weren't involved, and you're harming people that weren't involved.
Right.
I mean, it's like this
Right.
forever circle of always innocent people coming,
Yeah.
and being brought down by war and conflict.
Right.
Those people are trying to live their everyday life.
Right.
They really don't care about what land situation. If there were equal rights and equal representation and people equally having a voice, there wouldn't be a problem.
Right. And the tricky thing is, the only time that you see that is in Israel for Israeli citizens, right? So, looking at, the PA, looking at the government in Gaza, that's when it gets different. And so that's where, again, Israel would say, like, well, but look, we have Arabs who have political parties, who run major banks, major hospital systems, are members of the
but that's like
Knesset,
saying,
who vote, who are in the army.
But that's like saying, like, those are the good Arabs. Those are the ones we can, have.
Right. And as a black person in America, I
feel like that's just like,
you could easily make that comparison.
Yeah, so it's like,
yeah.
And I'm just going to use like civil rights leaders.
Sure, go for it.
Martin Luther King Jr. was very much that person that, he can come in these spaces, in, these diverse spaces.
Right,
and be able to, like, navigate and be seen as, like, the standard.
But Bayard Rustin, not so much.
Yeah, Bayard Rustin, not so much. Or, his... the people who usually compare Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Right.
Someone who's seen as, like, this militant, degenerate, who is, telling people to do all these bad things. When it's like, or is it just telling people you have rights and you can exercise them?
Right.
And you shouldn't let people trample all over you for the sake of, peace, quote unquote. But then, like,
I mean, this goes all the way back to the Booker T. Washington versus W.B. Du Bois stuff,
it's
right?
It's always battling, philosophies on how, people short, but, like, saying with that, like, that's that good black person.
Right,
and, those are the degenerates. And then it's like, but when we have moments of, people who are, and I feel like I do with this, like, the Black Panther so much.
Okay.
And, like, their community outreach, not only community outreach, but, like, ability to be, I would say multi-ethnic, for, like, lack of better words.
Okay.
But, like, being able to, get, like, poor white people, Latinos.
Oh, you mean like they were building bridges?
Yeah, building bridges, community bridges.
Yeah.
And then, like, when
a readjuster type of thing.
Yeah, and when people see, like, yes, they were still protecting their neighborhoods, making sure people had all the funds. So it's like, when people pull community resources together, when people are actually unified and taking care of themselves as a community, as like humans, rather than like humans in these set specific groups, that become the threat.
Right.
And then, like, what do you think about the Black Panthers now? What's the, like, general consensus of people who think about the Black Panthers now? Something violent, something militaristic.
Right.
When that was not the goal. That was not the concept. And it's like, I mean, proven evidence, I'm getting to that whole tangent, but proven evidence that the government colluded to, break apart, these organizations.
Right.
Who are doing good. But, I mean, I digress. Back to the original point of, there's always going to be, examples like that of look at this person who said, they wouldn't be able to do it in that country, but they're doing it.
Right.
Okay, they're doing it. What about everybody else?
Right.
One person isn't, one person shouldn't be like, oh, yeah, that's the great thing. That should be like, and everyone else can do it too. There should never be like this one holy person that, made it out of, this
system.
Yeah, system that's so hard to work in that they made it.
Right.
They made it, they're successful. It's like, everyone should be, given that opportunity.
Yeah.
Why would you need to, like, work so hard to prove that you're not a stereotype?
Right.
Rather than just not coming in there with the stereotype.
Right.
Which ultimately goes back to parenting, which goes back to the grandparenting and so on and so forth. Parenting, really is the problem when you really get down to it.
Yeah.
You teach your kids a lot.
Yeah.
And, they go on with those things. And that thus fuels
right
more instances of, violence or perceived violence or perceived threat from people you've never met before. And I do feel like, like 9/11 perspective on, Middle Eastern, Muslims changed, completely. Those people were just innocent walking around.
Right.
Now they're being assaulted. And it's just like all these other incidents. Oh, these black people are trying to go to church.
Right.
White person bust in there shooting.
Right.
Trying to go to synagogue. Same thing.
Right.
It's just like perpetual violence, and no one ever asking the question of, why are these narratives?
Right.
Instead of like having like these explosive conversations, actually getting on like, no, that's not right of you to think. Just, because this random person is walking, that does not mean that they're inherently dangerous because they come from this group.
Right.
So I do think it's like, back to the original point. Back to the point.
This is our meandering episode.
That like, this is content though. Like,
it is content. That's right.
That those people shouldn't be seen as like, someone who like is a part of a struggle story, when it should be like, no, they're in a country, they're all treated equally, so this would be more than one person, like more than one. This is not like the champion, like the one that's champion that seems like, oh, they're better than the rest. When everyone should be able to be given equal opportunity without judgment. So I mean, this is like a thing that they're gonna have to deal with in that part of the world,
right?
And that happens everywhere,
right?
But it just so happens that this is like what the media is focusing on.
Well, and coming up on 250 years of history in this country, it took us 250 years to get where we are now, right? Israel has not been around for 250 years as the modern state. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, check in 170 years and we'll see.
I mean, even so, this country, I mean, we've
got problems. We got things we're trying to work on.
I mean, we're still a young country.
Yeah, but, compared to the British, yeah, totally.
Just, we're still dealing and figuring things out, navigating these, political...
these interesting times.
These interesting political times that, we're in.
Yeah.
Which, this conversation is also shaping the narrative in many of, congressional races coming up, Senate races. How people feel about this specific issue.
Right.
Is going to, for some people, going to be the reason they vote for said person.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you for that light conversation. We've got a lot more stuff that's going to be coming up. We got to get to something in just a couple of minutes, but we'll talk more about the holidays that are coming up, and we got to jump back on Reddit because the people on Reddit, I may have been banned from Jewish Reddit, but that doesn't mean we're not going to read your stuff on here and use it as content, because it's all content.
Yes.
All right. Well, Javon, welcome back home for the short time that you're here, and I can't wait to make more content with you.
Woo.
Explosions. Thank you to our sponsors at Darshan Yeshiva for making this content possible. Darshan Yeshiva provides beginner-level online Jewish learning, including the very popular Conversion to Judaism program, with sponsoring rabbis and students all over the world. Start your Jewish journey any place, anywhere, and anytime with our conservative, reform, reconstructionist, Jewish renewal, humanistic, and post-denominational rabbi mentors. Become the Jew you always wanted to be with Darshan Yeshiva.